This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Okay, welcome back everyone. It is Friday, which is my favorite day of the week because it means mail time. These are the videos where we take a look at your work, the stuff that people have sent in. I wanted to say though really quick before we get going here, a couple things about mail time. So first of all, some of you may remember, I guess about a year ago, where I felt kind of guilty. I'd moved into this new studio. We hadn't done mail time in a long time, and it had kind of stacked up. Well, I started thinning through the stacks, and I did a bunch of videos, and we've been doing these mail time videos for a while, and as a result, people have started sending stuff in again. So you can't see it because you only see that side of the camera, but if I put a camera over there and you look back at this side, you can see that well, we're getting a little stacked up again. So a lot of times people will message me and they'll say, hey, did you get my package? And the honesty is I probably did. I haven't gotten to it yet. So unfortunately, this whole thing requires a little bit of patience. And one other thing, this is more of a question for you. I want to know what you guys think about mail time. I think that, obviously I love doing these. I love seeing the work that people send in. It makes it kind of a more personal relationship between me and you guys as the audience, and I love doing it. But I also want these videos to evolve a little bit. I want to start doing some new stuff. In the last video I did on mail time, I did some unsolicited critiques, which I'm kind of a mixed mind about because I really don't do critiques in mail time. It's not a one-on-one where we can sit down and talk about stuff, but I don't know. I want to know what you guys thought of that, if it makes sense to talk about things everybody can learn from, and I also don't want to insult people who bring something in if they take it the wrong way, so I'm just kind of torn on that. I don't know what I'm going to do today. I guess it depends on the mood I'm in, but drop me a comment and let me know what your opinions are on that. But without further ado, I think it's time to open some mail. Let's do it. This one is urgent. This is some emergency mail. Okay, first up is this book called Closed for Prayer. This comes to us from Saudi Arabia from a gentleman named Eric Tepner. And Eric writes, hello Ted, I have been meaning to send this your way for some time, but the mail is not always reliable here in Saudi Arabia. I hope it finds its way to you. I created this book during my year-long lockdown in Saudi during 2020 to 2021, and I can honestly say that this project kept me sane during those days. I live in a compound in the eastern province. Although I rarely need to leave the compound for food, supplies, etc., I do venture out from time to time. Since it's a strict Muslim country, the shops tend to close during the call to prayer, which happens 5 times each day. I typically don't go to town while the shops are closed because, well, what's the point? However, on one humid evening, I found myself running late and I had to roam the streets for a while waiting for shops to open. What I found was an eerie quiet and calm in the otherwise busy and bustling town. The light from the shop windows invited my camera to capture its emptiness, and I returned at least a dozen times to walk the empty streets while everyone rushed into the mosques. What resulted was this book, Closed for Prayer. It's still an ongoing work as I continue to edit the images down to a more reasonable number, but I hope you enjoy it. Most sincerely, Eric. Eric, this is pretty awesome, and it's one of those projects where something that doesn't seem very appealing at first turns into a really interesting idea that gives a lot of continuity through this book. And hold on, let me just say, there's some fabulous images in here. Yeah, beautiful images, Eric. I would actually love to see you continue this and do a volume 2 and keep me in the loop. I don't think I've ever gotten a package from Saudi Arabia before, so this is really awesome. So thanks for the note in the book. This is really cool. All right, next up is this book with an awesome seascape on the front. This comes to us from Patrick Burke, who writes, hi Ted, an inspiring channel you have. Please take a look at some of my work. It's a body of work inspired by the energies from the sea. I know the book isn't perfect, but what is perfect apart from the sea? I'm a multimedia artist living in Scarborough in the UK. My hunger is to create and express what I feel, good or bad. I'm inspired by the ever-changing mood we have within our heads, just like the weather and the rotation of the sun. God bless, Patrick. Also comes with this CD and has a note that says, this is my new Strange album. I'm a bit full of music too, Patrick. So full disclosure, I'm going to have to find a CD player. I don't have one here in the studio, but I'm going to work on this because I'm really interested in what you've got to say musically because the book is absolutely gorgeous. Okay, one note I want to make about this is something I really like. Even though the entire book is put together using black and white images, there's kind of 2 styles of photography that are going on here. We've got images like the Seascape here that are very sharp, very clear, very articulate, and then you kind of play with the opposite, which are these images that use more selective focus and a lot of blur technique. It's really a nice dichotomy within the book. Patrick, amazing work. Thank you for sharing. All right, next up is something very different, but very awesome. So this is miniature photography. This comes to us from Eugene Lagana, And Eugene writes, Ted, I hope you're in need of a chuckle. My enclosed photo book features everyday situations with a little comedy and surrealism peppered in. My photography also strives to bring sharp focus while incorporating the strong storyline to hold the viewer. The EXIF data for each photo is also included for people to learn from. I've always wanted to thank you for the impact you've had on my learning process over the years. You've taught me the language of photography, its history, the masters, and even a little hardware review. I hope you enjoy my book. Thanks again, Eugene. Okay, a couple things I want to say. First of all, I absolutely love this. I love the concept behind everything with the miniatures, with the figures, and you have this distortion of scale. And I love the fact that Eugene is employing humor within this. This is something you don't see photographers do nearly enough these days. I think it's hard to do, number one, and two, everybody just tends to be so serious, and we got to do street photography and landscapes and all this. So this is a really welcome breath of fresh air. It's difficult to stand out and be different. I think, Eugene, you have done this fabulously in here. I love the play on color. One note that I want to make, and this is something because, we're all going to learn from this. I would love to see more books from you. However, I am starting to wonder, actually. Okay, here's your layout, right? So we have full bleed photo with stuff underneath, so the text. First of all, with the EXIF data, I think your images are really strong. I'm not sure that anybody needs to learn from what camera or settings you used, and if you're gonna do that, what I would do is I would do it at the end of the book. This is an unsolicited critique, just in case you were wondering. But I made this exact same observation in the last mail time video, which is making me starting to wonder if this is a template that Blurb have on their site for you to use. And in that case, okay, my beef with this is, first of all, the images are fabulous. I would like to see them breathe a little bit. They don't need to be full bleed all the time. Just put them in there. A little border goes a long way. It looks really nice. And I'm not sure we need the EXIF data on the bottom. I don't mind the titles. But otherwise, I love this book. I think it's incredible. And the only reason I even make a note of this is, one, I want people to be able to learn from it. And two, I want your stuff to look as fabulous as it possibly can. And it's about 95% of the way there. See, this is the area I get into with the critiques. Like just telling somebody their book is 95% of the way. It's an incredible book. It looks awesome. All right, I've got two more amazing books that I want to share. One of these is very conceptual and very cool. But first, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor this week, who are the awesome folks over at Squarespace. Listen, you need a website, and we all know how much work that is to build and maintain, but it doesn't have to be. Squarespace is by far the easiest way to build your online presence. It's also the best way to grow a business that works for you without having to write a single line of code. Do you just need a simple portfolio or a blog to showcase your work? Well, Squarespace is perfect. Featuring a drag and drop interface. It's intuitive, it allows you to build galleries quickly and update your site with ease. Are you running a business? Well, Squarespace gives you additional tools for things like appointment scheduling, private member areas, social media tools, and even advanced email marketing. Do you sell products or services? Well, Squarespace has you covered with complete tools to power your store, from merchandising to checkout, so that you can sell, ship, and build your customer base. You can even sell classes or manage appointments through your website. And with Squarespace extensions, you can easily sync with third parties to manage, optimize, and enhance your website. From social media integration to SEO, Squarespace gives you all the tools you need to grow a business that works for you. So head over to Squarespace and sign up for the free trial. Start with one of their award-winning templates and see what you can create and just how good you're going to look. When you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/AOP and I can save you an additional 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Just use offer code AOP on checkout. So give it a try and see if Squarespace is right for you. And I want to give a special shout out and thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. All right, next up is a book called Manhattan Release. This comes to us from Edward Stein. Edward writes, Dear Ted, I think I started watching your podcast around 2013. Your shows taught me about so many great artists that I'd never heard of before. I love the images and the books that you presented, and I was very inspired. In turn, I gave myself a challenge. During 2014 and 2015, I decided to photograph a different neighborhood in Manhattan every week until I covered the entire island. It was a great experience that allowed me to quiet my mind and do what I enjoyed doing most, which is exploring the city and taking photographs. Shooting was fun, but it was a long road with many diversions before I finally finished editing and organizing the images into a zine. I did not want to make a typical tourist book about Manhattan. Instead, I anchored the zine around themes that I find interesting. For more information, it can be found at the website, and I'll list it below this video. Quick note for those of you who don't know, these videos actually started as a video podcast back in 2008, and I moved to YouTube the next year, and so really wasn't a whole lot of overlap, but a lot of people found out about this show through iTunes, and thus people still call it a podcast. Anyway, a couple notes. I love this. First of all, I love that you did not want to do something touristy, and I'm going to come back to that in a second. I love the cover. I love the concept of this, to be able to photograph kind of all the neighborhoods in an island and bring something together. I think that's pretty amazing, and New York is a fun place to do that. I would say, though, that if you didn't have the title on here, because it does avoid the tourist thing so heavily, sometimes it doesn't say Manhattan to somebody who hasn't been to Manhattan. That would be my only criticism of this, which brings us to a second challenge. How does one photograph an iconic place like New York City without just having the same New York City shots? And I think you allude to that. There's a couple spreads in here that are definitely in that vein, and this is what I would explore more with. I think stuff like this, too, where you have it blurred in the background. They start to suggest Manhattan. But other than that, I mean, this is a really nice book. I really love the idea, and I think it's really well presented. Another thing that I want to mention, I talked about in that last book about putting information on the photographs, and they are non-existent in here, but where they are collected is in the end. We have an image list with everything on it, so therefore, if the reader wants to know more or wants to know where something was taken, they can find it here. That way it doesn't clutter up the images, and see how they breathe much better when they're just kind of left on their own, when they involve spreads, so on and so forth. So I have to say, Edward, nice job. This is awesome. I have to tell you guys, I'm way outside my comfort zone on here, and it's not so much critiquing. I've critiqued work before, but it's just, I don't know, when people send stuff in, I've just never made this about critiques. I make it about sharing projects and things people make, and I don't want to lose that spirit. Anyway, next up is this book. This comes to us from Chuck Johnson. This is called Reflections Photo Art by Chuck Johnson. Dear Ted, my name is Chuck Johnson, and I have a long career in photography and would now like to donate my work in hope to encourage others. Ted, you do such a great teaching so others may improve their skill set. I started my path in photography 70 years ago, converting a small coat closet into my almost dark room. My formal training started in high school, and from there to Brooks Institute of Photography, class of 1964. I worked in the field of photography for the next 50 years. I had great mentors along the way, which improved my technical skills, composition, ability to see light. Before you can stretch the limits of your art, you need to know the basics first. I played in Ansel Adams' darkroom, I stayed with John Sexton, and I photographed alongside Jerry Uselman. These experiences helped mold me into a fine art photographer. Moving to the Seattle area upon retirement in 2005 afforded me the time to immerse myself fully in my passion. I have been given the gift to have lived in the East, West, North, and now the South, all offering me great camera adventures. I now have put these images into a book, a small portion of my photo art for you to see with 60 years of images, negative solarization, Kurt 1961 to present 2022. Ted, I plan on clicking as long as I'm ticking. Thank you, Chuck. And now for a little bit more of that unsolicited criticism. So a couple things that I love about this. First of all, I love the colors. I love the selections that are in here. I love the way it's organized. You are saying a lot in a very small book, and kudos to that. It's actually really beautiful. I love it. The only thing that I want to say about this is in some cases you've got 8 images on a spread. And this is just personal, and it's a compliment to you because I do like your work. I think there's some really cool stuff in here, but I would like it to breathe a little bit. I just want to see, maybe say less in a small book, but make it really powerful. Obviously, you've got a lot of experience, and you've got a lot of images. And I'm going to say this, too, because, look, we all deal with this, and I'm one of the worst at it. We have a lot of images, especially if you've actually taken the time to catalog those images and put them all into a Lightroom catalog or a NAS or however you're storing your stuff. And then all of a sudden, you kind of become a slave to this big volume of images, and you feel like you need to show a lot of images. My point is they are awesome, and I think you could take any one of these sections and just build a book based on that. Anyway, that's my unsolicited criticism for the day. This is my new catchphrase here, is the criticism you didn't ask for or want, but I'm giving it anyway. But I say these things because we're all here to learn, and this is not a slam against any of the work here, and I really appreciate everybody who sent stuff in having done so. So Chuck, thank you for sharing this. It is awesome. And if you guys have any comments, I would love you to drop them below and let me know what you think about this new trend here of unsolicited criticism that I'm just dishing out right and left. Till the next video, I'll see you guys then. Later. Getting fast and loose with mail time.